Hey everyone, I'm Jeremy Glidden.
And I'm David Glidden.
We are the final two of last year's, which was the first ever Survivor Fantasy Football, and we're helping out with production this year. We felt that we wanted to do a sort of just like question and answer thing, so that way some people have some more information about what this league kind of looks like now that you are all in it and participating. So yeah, we put out a form and got multiple questions about just random things that we'll go over. Anything else?
Yeah, I think Rocky mentioned in the chat that this is probably the best way for you all to be able to watch last season. So if you have additional questions that come up after watching this one, please do let us know, and we'd be happy to give you as much information as we can about sort of what happened last season.
Yeah, we can just do a quick recap of last season if you want to, real quick. So essentially, from our point of view, being the final two, David actually saw the league on Twitter, and I'm not huge into the fantasy football Twitter community and everything. He's definitely the fantasy football guy. I'm the Survivor guy. He let me know about it, and I said, "Oh, that sounds awesome. We should totally do it together." If people haven't heard by now, I pretended to be somebody else, so that way we didn't have a visible target going into the game. And that's actually one of the questions that we have, so we might as well mention that now. But one of the questions was how many people knew each other in the league last year? And I think it was, we only had 16 people in the league last year, unlike this year, 18 with 3 tribes of 6. It was 2 tribes of 8. And since it was the first time doing it, there was a much smaller pool to cast from, and so like a lot of people knew each other. A lot of people knew Rocky, and there's multiple groups of people that were familiar with each other, and so. Hot off of coming off of Winners at War, the Survivor season, which was premiering at the time, there had just been people who were targeted because of pre-existing relationships, and so that's why I said when you let me know about this, I was like, oh yeah, sure, let's do it together. I was like, I want to be somebody else. I was like, okay, I don't want us to have that target or whatever. So yeah, that was the first one.
Yeah, so specifically, we came in with a group of 3, us 2 and one of Jeremy's friends. There was another group of 3, and then a lot of people who just sort of knew Rocky and were sort of in that podcasting fantasy Twitter circle, though didn't, I think, come in with a plan.
There were 2 guys that they knew each other from childhood.
Yeah, that's true.
We voted one of them out right away because of that. And then there were like other loose connections. I think some people had been in like leagues together and stuff, but some of them are like the larger, right? Like
the Scott Fishbowl and things like that. So there weren't too many like closer connections.
But as far as that goes for this year, and Dave, you helped out with a lot of the the casting and getting the word out. There was a much bigger applicant pool. So as I've always kind of thought of if someone were to ask me, Jeremy, would you recommend doing that sort of thing? Obviously, the league has already started, so it would be too late to do it at this point. But I felt like that was something that we needed to do specifically because that was a smaller casting pool. People knew each other, whereas like this year, you being part of casting, you can vouch for the fact that we definitely like tried to put out a bigger casting pool, so there aren't like groups of people and stuff like that.
Yeah, but we can't, I guess, confirm or deny that there are specific groups of people that may or may not know each other or may not know each other sort of informally.
Yeah, and because like those fishbowl leagues and stuff, like there will always, I'm sure, like people that are just connected, like general, right?
Those like, fishbowl leagues, you mean the Scott Fishbowl League?
Is that one league? I thought it was like a bunch of different.
No, it's
I know nothing.
I'm the fantasy person. He'll be the Survivor person.
Yeah, exactly. So let's look at another one of these questions. What strategical aspects did you implement in the fantasy football format of Survivor that have been or would be utilized in the setting of the Survivor TV show? Just to start off with that, I thought having alliances, that was from the get-go. I had in my tribe of 8, I had my majority alliance of 5 before the draft ended, and then within that, an alliance of 3 to be the majority of the 5, and then I felt like I was pretty good with both of those guys in the 3, and so alliances were certainly part of it. from your experience, your limited knowledge of Survivor, what would you say of what,
Yeah, I mean, I think just this wasn't necessarily a strategical aspect, but expecting backstabbing and lying and things like that, like that's a big part of this league. And so one thing that I think we want to make sure you all know for this year is that don't take it personal. This is a Survivor League because of the fandom that's around Survivor, and you all were chosen because of your interest in Survivor. So you should expect that you'll be backstabbed, that people will be lying to you and sort of directing you in different ways, trying to see different ideas to make you think you came up with them, things like that.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I certainly tried to do, that I don't know how much it happens on the show, but like be as truthful as possible in the little segments where I can be, so that it's because it's harder really to keep a lie going and keeping track of all of the different lies that you've told.
For sure. Yeah. And you see that on the show all the time, where people go out there like, oh, I'm going to lie about everything. And it just naturally, you pick up on who is lying. Yeah. And so like, yes, there is lying, there's blindsides, there's backstabbing and all that. Well, one of the seasons that I really like to point to of, what we kind of typically want the show to be, obviously on the TV show and it being, on a major network, CBS and everything, they want some crazy people that they cast and everything. So that way there's drama and conflict. But I personally like some of the seasons where everyone is just in there with a general understanding of like, okay, we are playing, and so when people get voted out, they're not taking it personally. They're not, and season 33, Millennials versus Gen X, was really good with that, where, they were backstabbing each other, blindsiding each other, but like they all understood like, okay, this is a game. We're all here to do this game. And so, even though they would lie to each other, it would never be like the going personal with stuff. And so that was a big deal. And I would say that's what would be most appropriate for a league like this, right?
Sure.
It's ultimately because, people love fantasy football, Survivor, both. And so, any advice I would give to people, just like, have fun with it, and, when, unfortunately, someone has to be first vote out, someone has to be second vote out. Not everyone's, going to win. And so, only one person wins. And so, you can definitely make it worth your $25 that you put in if you just like, pour your effort into it. And I think within the first couple of weeks, like last year, I was already like, okay, even if I get voted out next, this has been so much fun already that, the $25 was worth it. Right.
Yeah, and obviously, many of you have already spent plenty of time already, probably on this league that you haven't spent on other leagues. So yeah, just have fun with it.
Yeah. We have. How did you choose the tribe names? So the tribe names, Hunahpu, Koror, and Tabira. Essentially,
it's random, right?
It was kind of. I told the commissioner to give me 3 numbers between 1 and 40, and so like per season or whatever. And then essentially, I just chose like my favorite tribe from each of those seasons. He originally did pick Survivor season 15 China, but like since Survivor China was very like ingrained to like the Chinese culture and everything, like all the tribe names were like very, very Chinese and didn't really fit in with like the other ones. So that one we did scratch and then say pick a different number. But when Rocky said 10, so I immediately know Koror and Oolong. You don't know, but like Koror was like one of the most dominant tribes of all time, and Oolong was one of the worst. And so I was like, I'm not going to force somebody to be like the worst tribe in Survivor history. Tabira, that has like some Tyson, is one of my favorites of all time, and he was on that tribe, coach as well. And then when he picked 29, that had like one of the tribe, the Hunahpu, the tribe that I picked, had like a lot of great returnees, Kelly Wentworth, Jeremy Collins, Keith Nail. And so Drew Christie, if anyone likes that guy, he had an awesome episode where it was a whole thing. And season 29, episode 4, hilarious. Drew Christie, one of the best. So that's how we came up with that. So next one, how many idols were released in the game and how many were actually used? So there were multiple idols. The commissioner always makes sure that, like there was an idol in play or something like, but as far as the specifics, obviously we can't go into that, but, do you remember how many there were last year, total? I mean, Raul,
Jason twice.
Tabor had 2 idols at one point. we both had an idol by the time the game ended. So
yeah, there were a lot of idols sort of given out, and not necessarily. I don't think they were used all that much.
Yeah, I think the only one that actually negated votes was the one I played on you in Final Five or something like that. But I know this some of the specific rules of those this year are they can only be played up to Final Six, so that is certainly something different than last year.
And there wasn't an idol necessarily. There wasn't an idol. I don't think that was collected or found during the draft. That was with Frank Gore.
Frank Gore, yeah. So
this year is new.
Yeah, and so for him, I don't know if I mentioned this in the Tripcast, but the Frank Gore immunity idol is very similar to when on the show when they'll win a necklace, they'll have a challenge at the beginning. They'll be like, okay, if you choose to do something a little bit more self-interested, then you get the necklace, but that's only good for the first travel. So as far as the Frank Gore immunity idol, it's really more like an immunity necklace sort of thing. You can look at Survivor Gabon, the first episode on that. It basically functions the exact same way as that does. Yeah. So, and then as far as that, we also have what sort of advantages or twists can we expect in Fantasy Football Survivor?
And we can't really talk about this year.
Yeah, can't talk about
maybe talk about some of the twists from last year.
Yeah, and stuff that you would see, on the show. So like there was an extra vote at some point. There was a vote block. Which like just made it so if it was played, someone couldn't vote. That was seen, I believe, first on season 35. Played on Devin Pinto right after the vote. It wasn't a stolen. Well, there was there is a stolen vote as well. That's another basically if you think of Survivor in the 30s have really started. 30 season 30 was the first time they had an extra vote, and then from then they started introducing a lot of different twists and advantages. Like you can expect kind of anything with that. I don't think Rocky's had too many advantages that are different from anything that you would see on the TV show or anything like that, but he might come up with something new this year. So just kind of, I would say, expect the unexpected with that. But
he's really good at coming up with twists.
yeah, for sure. He definitely that's a way with this league going on multiple months. That's definitely a way to keep it from getting stagnant. So people can certainly expect that. So how often did contestants trade players? I'll let you kind of talk on this, you being the fantasy football expert.
Well, last year there wasn't the same rules in place as there is this year, where if you traded a player, then you couldn't sit out on the odd weeks where there isn't an even number of players, teams to all face each other. So, last year, I think it was around week 2 or week 3. I mean, the tribes sort of started trading like crazy. And literally all of the studs from one tribe would go on to, essentially 4 of the teams, and then essentially tanking the 2 other teams. So it was definitely a big part of last year's game. Part of what we realized is that could really lead to, or part of what Rocky realized is it could lead to snowballing
which is exactly what happened last year.
For the team for the tribe that really traded very well. And so that's why some of the rules are in place this year too. Essentially prevent some of that snowballing from happening.
We were on different tribe last year, and David, and your tribe didn't lose an immunity challenge at the beginning because essentially, on the show, when a tribe wins a challenge and then the other tribe goes to vote somebody out, when they come back and do the next challenge, the tribe that won before has to sit somebody out, and they go sit on a bench. Well, the equivalent of that in a fantasy football league is your players, because your players are essentially participating for you. So then they would just make the person who was sitting out, they would just give all their good players to the other team, and then it just made it super impossible for us to ever get back from that. And then it just got worse the more people we lost, and then and they were still able to stack everyone on one tribe or on a certain amount to get the majority. And so that's why that rule is in place of whoever is sitting out for a week. So after this first week, there's going to be 1 tribe with 5 and 2 tribes with 6. The 2 tribes with 6, the one contestant who is sitting out that week, they need to keep their players on their team. That we're going to be really strict on that and making sure that they're not trading their players, because that's essentially making it where one tribe is still competing with their full tribe and everything like that. There's no perfect way to enforce that because, like, obviously you still want trades to happen, but we're going to take that on a case-by-case basis of saying, like, okay, like, this person you're sitting out, like, you were not involved with any trades for the week, because you are truly sitting out. Your players are sitting out with you, essentially. And then after, there wasn't, as far as like just random trades, there weren't a ton from tribe to tribe because it became very quick, like very tribal of like, if you are seeing like, soliciting like trades with the other tribe, it's like, oh, are you trying to get on their good side? Like, what are you trying to do there? And so I think the general suspicion and the general like tribal warfare that kind of broke out with this of last year was Jabiru versus Makawa. It was like, don't interact with the other tribe at all. And so I think that just naturally happened. But then there were some trades like after the merge and everything. Some people, just trading around. But this year specifically, there are benefits for, and this has already been mentioned, there are benefits for, how well your team has done over the entire season, like points accumulated. So I know last year it was at the final four instead of like the typical fire making challenge that they would have on the show, where the person who won immunity would make two other people compete in fire and one would go out. It was whoever had the most points on the season. So essentially, if you come into, with four people left or whatever last year, it was like, you would win immunity for that week. And there are going to be some other things that haven't been revealed yet that favor people who have had, most points throughout the season. And so that's also kind of to, just make sure that there's not as much that snowball effect that really happened last year. And especially last year, it was one tribe against another. So anything that benefited one, like, it was tough. But, I mean, I ended up winning the game, and I was on the tribe that lost everything at the beginning. So, maybe it's good to lose at the beginning, really stretch your strategic muscles. But that's about everything that we have of the questions that people submitted. Obviously, we can't go too depth into everything because we don't want to spoil anything of what the plans are for this season and things like that. But hopefully, this helped provide some information of what kind of happened last year and how the league is different this year going forward. But yeah, you have anything else to?
Yeah, no, just thanks for watching again. Send us any additional questions you have about last season, and as always, stay focused and be prepared for whatever comes your way.